Tim, that looks good. What are we eating today?
Oh man, we are eating some fantasy football right now.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Finally, I've been waiting for this.
I've been waiting all year to have me a piece of that.
Wait. Who's that? Who just talked?
Oh, it's Tyler Brandt.
Oh, Tyler Brandt is sitting in with us
join
today.
the table with you guys
Oh,
today?
Jared, come on.
Pop
What
a
a
seat.
surprise.
Come
Come
in
here,
with
you're
us.
here right now. Come here. Oh, Mr. Tyler Brandt's on the show today.
All right, so you got two regulars. We got Tim Giorso and me, Brian.
What am I, the Gobbler, right?
Yeah, you're the Tim the Gobbler Giorso and Brian the Crustacean Catolica. And with Tyler the Terror Brandt.
Tyrannosaurus. We have a couple names for him. Mr. Brandt. We call him what's the Kevin Durant name we have for you?
Burantula.
The Branchula.
All right. We can roll with the Branchula.
Yeah. I'll give a little intro to Tyler. Tyler's been my friend since high school. We are both huge basketball fanatics. We have a fantasy basketball league that we've been doing for how many years now? 5, 6 years?
6, something like that.
6 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So we are loving our basketball for sure. But we are not here to talk basketball.
No, we
here
aren't.
to talk fantasy football.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right, that's enough of
Oh, you're
that.
supposed to continue.
So the way that we're gonna format this is we're gonna go 1 through 10, or maybe 1 through 15 or 20, depending on what we.
Hey, before we start,
well,
you guys were in the finals of fantasy football last year, correct?
No.
What was
The
that?
year before.
last year in our league that all three of us are in and a part of. I was in the championship last year against one of our other friends' dads.
Beat you in the semifinals.
Beat you in the semifinals finally. It took a few years, but finally broke over the hurdle of you. And I played our friend Troy's dad, Mr. Jim Sheridan. And
Solid year. He picked up Odell.
Yeah, Odell Beckham. We
Carried him.
are going to be doing a keeper league, so that conversation might come up because we had a little bit of a keeper debacle.
5th round though.
Just
saying.
But yeah, so close matchup. But I ended up edging Jim out.
You had a pretty stacked team.
Yeah, I did. I had aside from I think 2 positions, I had which would have been tight end and quarterback. I had top 10 players at every position.
That's insane.
And
I don't know why people kept trading it.
90% of those players were achieved through trades. So
I'm not gonna lie,
Brian is essentially in our
got
league.
pretty damn lucky with a lot of those. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like,
there. I mean, maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
But
Brian is like the trade. Somehow, some way, every year, everyone knows that Brian always gets the better end of the deal, or at least the majority of the time does. And people still trade with him. Every time. He's
shoot.
so persuasive. I don't
Call
know
me-
what it is.
It's
Call
not
me the
that.
pu-
He was trading some fair trades. It's just the other end. Like, man, like the bad luck trade.
call me the puppet master. But all right, so we'll get started. First off, we do a 2 quarterback league. So quarterbacks.
I was the original creator. I like the 2 quarterbacks because when everyone does a standard 1 quarterback league,
There's a lot of good
then
quarterbacks.
You can always pick up a good quarterback every
Yeah.
week. It's lame, but when there's 2 quarterbacks, it's like guys like
Matt Castle.
are like picked up and owned. Like every quarterback's owned. You don't
Yeah.
see any
If there's
quarterbacks on the record.
if there's a quarterback that's gonna start, like Johnny Manziel last year, like if there was even word that he might have started, if he wasn't already owned, he was gonna be owned through that waiver week.
Sometimes teams like literally won't have a quarterback to use that week. Because
there's
they'll
so
have
many.
to trade for one because quarterbacks are on bye, and there's just so. I love the scarcity.
I was just
quarterbacks.
about to mention that the scarcity of a quarterback because when you're going through the waiver wire, there's nobody out there to pick up because you always have 2 quarterbacks starting, and at least probably 1 on your bench for a bye week.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love that scarcity factor of having that 2 quarterback league right there.
Makes it more fun.
Yeah, it
At
does.
least in my opinion.
All right, so let's get into it. We'll just run through. We'll just read them off, and we'll stop and make comments on them as we go through. We'll go number 1 on ESPN rankings. We're probably going to go off of those most of the time. Just
I mean,
because,
ESPN's solid. I mean, no one uses Yahoo.
Yeah, no one uses Yahoo.
Or anyone
likes
anyone
Yahoo.
who's smart doesn't use Yahoo.
I have ESPN and I also have Fantasy Pros, so maybe we can do a little comparison as well. But number 1, we got Aaron Rodgers.
We're going by position.
Yeah,
right?
let's go to
specify.
quarterbacks over there.
So
I'm
Aaron Rodgers is our number 1 quarterback on the board. I think there's no really. Aaron Rodgers is the best. I had him last year,
the biggest thing for me with Aaron Rodgers is the touchdown to interception ratio, which is out of this world. Some of the best that we've ever seen, and especially in we might transition to this. We've always had throwing touchdowns worth 4 points, and,
which is how it should be.
Oh yeah, absolutely, agreed.
Our commissioner is thinking about changing it to 6
Troy,
points.
if you're listening to this, Troy, I disagree with the.
We disagree with
the 6 points for quarterbacks.
That's too much.
I think that's too much because I've played in leagues like that, and it's basically if your quarterback does not do well, you're screwed.
Well,
I mean, essentially, because quarterbacks, the stats they put up nowadays, you give them extra points. They're already the highest scoring players on your team already, and now you're giving them more points.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just too much.
I
too
feel
much
like that -3 isn't
going
going to really counteract either with like a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who has an exceptional touchdown to interception ratio.
Yeah, and if we end up doing what is currently in place with 6 points for passing touchdowns and -3 points for interceptions, I think Aaron Rodgers is clearly the number one option in all of fantasy. Yeah, I mean he'll be putting up 30 points.
It's too much. It's too much. It puts too much value on the quarterback because then even though the rest of your team does well, if your quarterbacks have a bad week and the other quarterbacks go off for 30, 40 points, you lose. And it should be based on your whole team, not just one
Mr.
position.
Brandt, if you would.
Which is why, Troy, I would advise you, please move it back to 4 points per quarterback touchdown. Just, you can't make quarterbacks that valuable.
Can we put it
too much?
Right,
this is not a soapbox. We're not here to complain. We're here to talk fantasy football and each of the position players because we want to give as much as maybe the people that are listening to this might be in the leagues that we're in. We want to, if there's anybody else out there listening to this, which there might be, we want to give you guys maybe a competitive advantage and give you guys a little bit of insight. I think also
we're going to give you a full serving of fantasy right in your mouth.
Alrighty. So, second on the list is Andrew Luck.
Yep. I had both of them last year. I had Rodgers and Luck as my two quarterbacks.
You did. So nice. But you also, to get Andrew Luck, correct? You had to trade Le'Veon Bell and
it was
the other way around.
I think the 2 weeks before the playoffs, I traded Luck to Tyler right here and I got Le'Veon Bell and
Cam Newton.
Yes. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to put you.
Still wasn't enough. I tried. I had to do what I could to try
and I appreciate that. If you're in fantasy leagues, make sure that you're paying attention. You're trying to make moves because there's nothing worse than a dormant owner in fantasy sports. It kills the integrity
because then someone gets a free win 1 week because you don't put your lineups in. It's
Rocky.
just not fun.
All right. Well, so do you guys have any opinions on Andrew Luck?
I think he could. I mean, it depends on your scoring system, obviously, but I think he could even be better than Rodgers depending on the system.
Yeah, I think in a standard format, 4 points for throwing touchdowns and 2 points for interceptions. Andrew Luck has had some interception troubles in the past, but unlike Rodgers,
they got a running game now. They got Gore, running back. They just got Andre Johnson
if he's healthy. Yeah, I mean their wide receiver core is very good. They have
Ty had him last year.
They got a rookie in the first round at receiver. They have Ty. They have Andre Johnson. They have a very deep roster to throw it to. Unlike I think Rodgers, he has a very good receiver core, but I think the Colts might be able to edge him out on that. I think
questionable.
Questionable. I mean that, but I was gonna say Andrew Luck I think has the ability to run the ball more than Aaron Rodgers does.
That's true.
Aaron Rodgers,
and
don't get me wrong.
I'd say a little bit more sturdy. Rodgers a little bit more, I think, susceptible to injury.
Well, and Rodgers did have an injury 2 years ago, correct? Right? That kept him out for a while. I think that he was a young guy. He was on top of the world, and I think that kind of maybe put him into perspective a little bit. I think that's one of those moments where you realize
that was before we had the running back to take the pressure because he was getting sacked too much.
Yeah, a lot.
But once we got Lacey, now we can balance it. Now he's getting protected more.
But I think Rodgers is a seasoned veteran. He knows he can beat anybody with his arm, and I think he's going to do that a lot more this year. Whether that leads to more points than Andrew Luck, we'll have to wait and see. In most standard leagues, you get a lot of points if a quarterback can do it.
I'd be happy with any of those guys.
A 10-yard rush for a touchdown is as good as a 90-yard drive all throwing.
That's true.
Which I think
you could definitely, like I said, depending on your scoring system, how your league's set up, I think you could take Luck over Rodgers. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
At number 3,
Another one of those runners. We got Russell Wilson.
Hey, it kind of depends on that 6-point format Troy was talking about. If we're going to switch to that, I'd say, a little less valuable.
Right.
Because Russell Wilson has the ability to run the ball.
He is a runner. He'll get you probably 2 or 3 points rushing probably very consistently, I think.
Probably the best running quarterback in the draft.
Yeah. I mean, Kaepernick would be the other one, but
Cam could. He's got the potential to be.
I think he'll recover from that.
I remember I had him the season that he had 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, no,
that was fantastic.
Yeah, I had him in the season where he only probably had like 3.
Well, so. And Russell Wilson getting Jimmy Graham, my beloved Jimmy Graham. It's gonna open up the field for all aspects of the Seattle offense, and so I think Seattle might, if they stay healthy on both sides of the ball, they might be able to run away with the regular season and even into the playoffs. I
think they'll rely on the pass a little bit more because they have Jimmy, and I think Marshawn's getting a little bit older.
Yeah,
maybe you're gonna get a little less production out of him. As the years go on. So
speaking of less production, down to number 4.
Ooh.
Peyton Manning.
The choker.
The choker in the playoffs, but playoffs don't really matter. It's all about those 50 touchdown seasons and the 5,000 yard seasons. Do you think Peyton Manning is actually going to be able to keep that up another year beyond what I thought he was going to be able to play? Beyond that neck injury where a lot of people counted him out. Maybe he was going to retire, and he comes back, sets records left and right. Do you think he's going to be able to keep it up another year?
I think his production will dip a bit. I mean, you'll see some decline, but I think overall you'll still have definitely a top 10 quarterback.
Definitely top 10.
Maybe like 6, 7, 8 maybe is where I'd see him really. I mean, depending on the production dippage.
I agree.
But he still has a solid offense. They just have to make sure they protect him. If C.J. Anderson works out as a good running back, then they have protection there.
And they got C.J. Anderson, they got Monty Ball, 2 young guys that...
Monty Ball?
Monty
was tough.
But it's still a young guy. He's not afraid to take a beating, taking a block from a linebacker or anything like that. So, I mean, as long as they can protect him.
I think it's now, though, a little bit risky to take Peyton. Like, Peyton's not that sure thing he was at the top of the draft.
Yeah,
I think you are taking
there's one guy...
Because one hit... I mean, he's getting to that age where... But then again, we just said that about Tom Brady. He's too old, and look at him.
Yeah, but also at the end of last year, though, he had that hamstring injury that kind of hampered his production late in the season and into the playoffs as well. So you don't know. I mean, maybe his body's going to give out on him this year, and as much as he makes up for the lack of strength in his arm, in his brain, and the way he's able to manipulate the field and stuff like that, there comes a point in a career where you can't always outsmart the other guy. Something like
unless you're Brett Favre, then you just live
whatever.
forever.
Tim, he's not. Number 5, my man.
Yeah, I would take Breeze over Manning. Like I would definitely take Breeze over him.
I think
risk and still solid quarterback.
Yeah, so Breeze is number 5. I think the Saints offense is primed for another potentially historic season. They've put up yards and not necessarily touchdowns as much, but they're always productive from a yard standpoint. Drew Brees has some young targets to throw it to.
That loss of Jimmy though.
But I mean,
obviously you're the big Saints fan. Tell me who's it? Do they still have Marcus Colston? That guy's like
they do.
Ages.
He's a veteran presence. He's
inconsistent.
Iffy.
He used to be a great
sometimes
player,
his hands are really great, sometimes they're not. Sometimes he'll throw a forward lateral in NFC Championship game. And lose a game instead of running out of bounds like he should. Marquise, if you're listening to this,
Yeah.
If he's listening,
I'm happy
going somewhere with this podcast.
I'm not a Saints fan, but
I think the reason I say that they might be primed for another high yardage season is the acquisition of C.J. Spiller in the offseason.
Right.
I think they could potentially
some dump offs there for CJ.
Yeah, they could harken back to a few years ago when Darren Sproles set the all-time record for a single season with yards, like total yards. That
was like huge.
That includes
for
punts
Breeze.
And stuff like that.
Having that little dump off guy, he could just
and so we had Pierre Thomas doing that, kind of filling that role when we lost Sproles to the Eagles, but obviously Pierre Thomas is not as quick as Sproles was, and I think CJ Spiller is going to be able to come in and fill that role. Drew Brees knows how to
too, right?
Yeah, and Ingram's a
bruiser last year. Right?
Yeah, he did really well last year.
An injury, he probably was on pace for over 1,000-yard season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and so I'm excited to see what the Saints have, and Drew Brees is fifth ranked, and I think that is perfect for him. I don't see him lower than the quarterbacks after him, or aside from Manning, higher than the ones above him. Except for this guy. I think this next guy, number 6, Ben Roethlisberger, I think he could potentially be one of the top 2 guys this year.
Top 2?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I know I've spoken pretty highly of Rodgers, Luck, Wilson, all those guys, but
he does have some great weapons.
Maybe
though.
3. Those two are just so good. I don't think you can ever.
I think
those weapons. Though.
I think Roethlisberger's surrounding cast is
that's true. They do have obviously they have Antonio Brown, who was the leading receiver.
Yeah,
and they have that young guy. What was his name?
Marcus
popped
Wheaton?
Last year. Marcus Wheaton, who came out last year and had like a couple touchdowns right away.
Yeah, no,
as a rookie. So
yeah, I think through the first.
Too?
Yeah, no, and he did very well last year. But I think a big thing for him that he hasn't had in a while is that running back behind him. Le'Veon is suspended for the first 3 games.
Le'Veon, what are you doing?
But
what are you doing?
But when we talk about running backs,
that weed.
I'll talk about one of the reasons why I think he is potentially the best running back in fantasy this year. I might not draft him highest because of that 3-game suspension with a 13-game regular season for fantasy. Missing 3 games
that's pretty big.
Be a big deal. You might not think it at the beginning of the season, but when it comes down to the end of the season and you took 2 losses in the first 3 games, that might be a big deal. But Ben Roethlisberger, he had 2 games in a row with 6 touchdowns last season.
That's pretty incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
That receiving core is pretty doggone good.
I think this might be like the Steelers as a whole, as well as
so you take him over Peyton and Russell.
Depending on the
top 2.
Depending on the format of the league, if it is ending up being a 6 point per passing touchdown,
which would suck.
Let's just hope that doesn't
besides
happen.
the point, if it is a 6 point per passing touchdown, I would take Roethlisberger over Wilson. I probably would take him over Manning and Breeze anyway. He's one of my guys that I think could do well by the end of the year. Maybe I'll realize that he didn't. But dropping down to 7, we got Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons.
Tough year last year.
I think tough year last year. I think that's.
He's been being consistent. Like the Falcons are good, and then they're bad, and then they're good again. They're bad.
Yeah, no. I mean, last year everyone in the NFC South was god awful.
That division's crazy. I think there's a new division winner every season. Like no one
pretty
ever
much
consistently wins that division.
Pretty much. It's. I mean, it's a toss up. The Panthers were really good in 2013, and they dropped off completely in 2014. The Falcons and the Saints had battled it out for years before that.
So you think they had it down there last year? So that means Ryan is primed for a big year now, right?
That's using logic. Yes, but I think the keys for Matt Ryan are his 2 receivers.
Julio.
You got Julio Jones.
Roddy White was hurt a lot of last year.
Well, and so was Julio also. He's been hurt on and off. Once he can get both those guys on the field at the same time, he's gold, especially
for them is their running game. I mean, Steven Jackson last year was not.
I don't even know
not a very good running back.
I have private for a rookie.
They drafted a rookie. I'm pretty sure who's starting for them now.
Yeah,
we could look that up in a little bit, but I think the running game is big for Matt Ryan. I think he really needs that that offense is kind of it's more traditional. And you need a good running game for him so he can have protection and then he can hit those big wide receivers. So
yeah, and I mean Julio Jones is one of the best big play receivers in the league. He's any play. The running back for the Falcons is Tavon Coleman. Your guess is as good as mine.
Stud.
As who
Total
he is.
Stud. Let me just tell you this guy right here. I'm just kidding. I don't really know.
Whatever.
These are things we should know.
Falcons they've always been able to play well at home. That's one of the big reasons.
Ironically, with their fair weather fan base.
Well,
but taking a shot at the Atlanta fans. All right.
They are the worst fans in all of sports.
They do play in an indoor stadium.
That's true.
They just play well at home.
Matt Ryan loves dome.
He loves the domes.
All right, going down to number 8, Mr. Inconsistent. Cam Newton.
Hey,
I love him though. Like
he had that ankle surgery though. Couldn't run the ball last year.
I hate him, but I love him. I remember watching him in college, and I was just like, "This guy's so incredible." I had him pegged as he would be the second African American quarterback to win a Super Bowl behind, I forget the guy who did it with the Redskins back in the day. But I really had high hopes for Cam, and he's shown a little bit of that. I mean, I had him for the season, 16 touchdown. I mean, you can't sustain that as a quarterback. You can't sustain those type of hits and have a long career. So obviously he needs to become a better pocket passer. But he's got an arm. He's got a cannon.
Oh, and he's got good talent at receiver. Second year guy coming in. You got Kelvin Benjamin. He had a pretty good chemistry, even though Cam Newton didn't have that fantastic of a year last year. Kelvin Benjamin still had a very, very productive.
Had him, picked him up.
Yep,
Tyler dropped him.
I had to. I wanted to keep him. I knew about him. I drafted him in every damn league, man. I had to drop somebody.
No bitterness, obviously. You know.
I mean, there out of all there were an astonishingly large amount of very good rookie receivers last year, and out of that core, he was probably one of the top. I would say at least top 4, if not top 3. Mm-hmm. Moving down the list. We got Tony Romo at 9, and
Tony, he's a tricky one.
They were able to sign Dez.
Those back problems.
Recent news, but
he's oh man, he's so
something
tough.
about him.
I mean, you hope that you could get in that top tier of those other quarterbacks.
Yeah,
if you're stuck with Tony, it's like, well,
if
you can still win with Tony. It's just
my word of advice to anybody that plans on drafting Tony Romo, especially if it's a 2-team league. Not as important if it's a 2-quarterback league. It's not as important if it's a 1-quarterback league, but still pretty important to get a good backup. If you're drafting Tony Romo and
get his backup.
if you're get his backup, maybe if you're in a 2-quarterback system, but if you're in a 1, whatever the go around on whatever round you get Tony Romo in, let's say it's the 4th or the 5th, if it's a 1-quarterback league. Go and get him. Go and get the next best quarterback on the go round for the draft, for a snake draft. So let's say you draft Tony Romo, and on the next round you have a guy like maybe Phillip Rivers or Stafford sitting there. I would suggest getting a second guy like that, so that maybe you can play matchups. Tony Romo, he plays well when he's at home. They have a fantastic offensive line, young offensive line.
They did just lose DeMarco though.
They lost DeMarco, but they replaced him with Darren McFadden, so it's okay.
Okay.
Anywho, rounding out the top 10, Mr. Tom Brady. Tim, take it away.
Oh, I love Tom. But he's not really a good fantasy quarterback anymore because the Patriots know what to do to win, and that's run the ball.
4-game suspension.
Yeah, 4-game suspension.
4-game suspension. And they're a running team, let's be honest. They don't have, besides Gronkowski, they have no other really good receiving threats. It's just more of a running traditional offense where Brady doesn't have to do a ton. But that's what wins games.
Unless you have a really big hunch or...
I mean, I'd take Rivers or Stafford probably over him.
Yeah, no, unless you have a really big hunch that a guy below him is going to do better, don't take Tony Romo. Or, don't take Tom Brady as your number 1.
I mean, if you want stability... You know what you're getting. If you want more upside, which I'm more of a big upside person, I'd go with a guy like Stafford or Rivers because there's just a little more.
And seeing the Patriots offense operate last season, I don't even remember the guy's name. He had running back had a 300-yard game or something.
Oh, the guy who missed practice and fell asleep.
Yeah, it wasn't 300 yards, but he had a ridiculously,
he did nothing.
Absolutely amazing performance in one game. Tom Brady obviously didn't do anything, and then they just have a weird system
to have Brady not have to throw very much.
Belichick knows how to win and win in many different ways. So he may be productive, he may not be. What we're gonna do now is we're all looking at this list, 11 through 25.
Yeah, why don't you just pick out a couple guys that you're high on?
We'll give you one or two.
A couple guys that really stick out to me are Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford. I mean, Phillip Rivers, obviously last year, he had a couple hot streak games last year. And
he did. Yeah, and they have a decent team around him. They got good enough serviceable wide receivers. They had Ryan Matthews running the ball last year, but he's gone. So we'll see what that entails for him.
Yeah, I'm going to say someone I'm on that list I think could potentially go a lot higher. I think Carson Palmer.
I was looking at him
super underrated. I know he got hurt last year, but he was having a really great season.
He was. And that was one of the reasons why the Cardinals were in a position to do really well, but then all of a sudden they had Ryan Lindley and whoever else.
They did not have a good I think Carson, he's definitely better than Bradford. I think you could take him over Kaepernick. I'd probably still take a guy like Stafford or Rivers over him.
Yeah, and Carson Palmer's ranked at 17. Guys ahead of him, Bradford, Kaepernick, Stafford.
Tannehill at
Rivers.
11, that's a bit high. That's, I don't know.
Yeah,
He's
when he
proven
lost,
himself that much.
Mike Wallace wasn't much in Miami, but they lost him. He was
I think I want to see more. I want to see more from Tannehill.
There's. I mean, I would probably
high.
rank him down at 19. I would probably take Jay Cutler over Ryan Tannehill, and Cutler's down at 19. But
I always like taking risks with the rookie quarterbacks because they can pop. You know, Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. I think those are
and especially
later on, those are risks worth taking.
Like we mentioned earlier, we are in a keeper league. If you're in a keeper league, obviously this may be kind of old news, but I mean, getting rookie quarterbacks that have a high ceiling. I don't think either of these guys have a very high floor. I think they could.
Who would you take, Winston or Mariota, or which one would you take first?
In a keeper league, I would probably take Mariota.
Because they're running, you can run a little bit more.
Because of the running, I think he's probably a smart. I know people have said that Jameis Winston is smart and picks up the game really quick. I think overall Mariota has a potential to. This is a way over exaggeration, but he has potential to put up interception to touchdown ratios closer to Aaron Rodgers than to a guy like Matt Stafford, who throws a lot of interceptions, than Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston is going to be a run-of-the-mill quarterback. I don't think he's going to be anything really special. He's not your prototype.
I think he's more of a project. I think if you're looking for a long-term, I think maybe you would go Winston over Mariota because I think long-term he projects better. But I think if you're just one season, because he doesn't have his legs that he can really rely on, he's not really a running quarterback. It's going to be more of a transition. He's not going to be able to use it. Like Mariota is going to be able to use his legs and his athleticism to score you more points in his first year. But I think over the long haul, I think Winston has the better.
Yeah, and Winston has a young receiver in Mike Evans that he can develop with. Mike Evans is going into his second year. Obviously, Jameis Winston's going into his first year. If they can develop a chemistry and kind of grow up in the Tampa Bay system, I mean, they could end up being a great combination in a few years.